Now, in the winter, you may agree or disagree, but personally, I prefer a freestanding tent in the winter. And this is because, you don't see it in my videos, but when I'm putting up something like a Duomid or a Ultimid or any of these kind of tents, I spend an amazing amount of time taking rocks that aren't frozen to the ground and just bashing in tent pegs when it's just this kind of frozen layer, right? When there's a lot of snow, then it kind of works with the Ultimate and these things, because you can make snow anchors and this kind of thing. But you always have to make sure that you find these best kind of situations to put up. When you have a freestanding, you're not nearly as dependent on finding the perfect place to put up. In the summer, it's not a problem. I always find places for a non-freestanding tent. But in the winter, I just prefer freestanding. And the reason I got the Niak instead of any other freestanding, one is that I really like Hilleberg tents. They're just way too heavy for my use, but they're getting lighter and lighter. They just released this Tarp 5 and mesh inner tent that, just an amazing package that weighs 700 grams together. And you're just like, wow, mind blown. Anyway, the Niak is the way I have it set up is 1.5 kilos. I've taken away all the guy lines, and I don't bring tent pegs with me. So I'll go ahead and set it up so that you can see what it looks like to set up and so on. Should be good. Let me make that straight. This isn't going to be a review of the Niak. This is going to just simply be a demonstration, talk about some of the reasons why I bought it, set it up, show the vestibule, show the tent itself, and even give some tips and ideas on how to make it lighter. Now, I'm going to start with the outside because there's, something special about Hilleberg tents. Just the quality, the detail. It's actually Hilleberg's, from what I know, are the only brand. Well, I think Vod's making a few now, actually. Anyway, that don't need to be seam sealed. They don't have seam tape in them either. And what they do is they use kind of a melting process in the needles themselves when they do the stitches, and that makes these perfectly tight, and they'll hold. Well, I rarely hear about Hilleberg tents that stop. Big loop for people like me who are never going to use it with pegs. Then I can easily just find I can put my ski in there, because I'm going to be using this mainly as a winter tent. For example, these little clips and doodads that really do make a difference on how tight you can make this tent. These little gadgets here, this is for the Guyline Tie Outs. I took my guy lines off, and to be honest, I'll probably cut these off in the end as well, and figure out a different way to mount it. There is no top ventilation, it's all here. So it's very dependent that that's open, and it's got on the back and on the other side as well. And on the front here you have a nice size vestibule. It's not massive, but it's big enough for the ultralight crowd. like I said, I got the Niak to kind of replace my first light from Black Diamond. The first light from Black Diamond, as I said in an earlier review, is a fantastic tent in a crappy tent. So, and just some details. What I want to talk about is one, the total weight of this tent with the guy lines, which I've taken off now. With the guy lines is 1.7 kilos. Now I've taken off the guy lines. Anyway, I don't know where I was at. Yeah, just some details about it. The Curlon 1000 fabric. And I think it has an 8-pound tear strength, which is just insane for the weight. Now the different weight, this was something I wasn't able to find online, so I took everything out and weighed it myself. The poles, the tent poles that you need for this, just the 2 tent poles, weigh just about 400 grams. So I was looking at the potential of replacing with carbon fiber poles, which would put me down to about 260 grams. So the question is it worth putting that investment to save 150 grams? I don't know, that's a choice that you would have to make. Now another thing about this is that if you take out the inner tent weighs around 480 grams and the outer tent weighs about 550, maybe 600 grams, yeah. So with that, if you take out the inner tent, then you have a freestanding Hilleberg tent that weighs just a kilo, right? This is great for people who don't have trekking poles and this kind of thing. It's a hard weight to beat in that manner. Now with that said, the inner tent is very easy to remove. It just has these simple little clips. So that's the inner tent. It's not a clip, it's just a little socket kind of thing. And it goes in there and you're done. The Hilleberg Niak is an excellent, useful tent for 1 or 2 people. It is tight for 2, granted, but it could work. And if you don't have trekking poles, then it's not that heavy, because if you bring trekking poles just to put up your tent, then even your lightest weight tents are still going to be around 1.1, 1.2 kilos. And this doesn't require any stakes. It doesn't really require a lot. It doesn't require any brain power about where you set it up. It doesn't require brain power about getting the nooks and crannies to work. It just works. It's your typical Hilleberg tent. It just works and it's gonna hold. The vents on this one are on the bottom, all around it. Now, you can have it open like this on days when it's not snowing or raining, and the one thing I found that works pretty decent is you can have that as a vent. Well, maybe not exactly this big, but you can have up here. And that actually gives some ventilation on top, and it holds up pretty well even when there's a lot of snow and rain. It doesn't allow a lot in because of this big flap right there. I also have this tent as kind of me and Alexander, my little son that just threw all that snow on me, as our kind of year-round tent when we're going to be going out together. Because it's a great size tent for that. Now it's too small for all 3 of us, me, my wife, and Alexander. But for us too, it's an awesome tent. Oh. I mean, this is such an awesomely big tent for the weight. Look at this. And I've got this little pad, proportionate, you know, in the middle more or less. But this is 120 centimeters wide, which is 2 large sleeping pads. And my feet, nowhere near, really. Here I am inside the Hilleberg Niak. You can see the vestibule, my full-size wind rider here. So 70-liter pack. It is pushing up against the side, but who cares? It's better here in the snow and wet than inside the tent itself. And my shoes. And you can see there's plenty of room for a little kitchen here and make your food if you need to. Here, some more ventilation if I need it.